Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Kathryn Peterson here with my co-host, Michael Regan. Today, we're excited to have a guest that both Michael and I know pretty well and have been able to spend some time with over the years. He's also a fellow Coloradan, which I'm always excited about. So the flow will be very calm and slow and happy. He's been in the mortgage industry for 27 years. He recently moved over to Cross Country Mortgage, which is where I also am. He has a wonderful wife, Amber, who's very adventurous along with him, and two great kids. And I'm excited to talk to Brian today because he's really adventurous. I know one of the first calls or one of the first conversations we had, he said, I really want to start going to conferences outside of the industry because I just can never learn enough. And I want to do things that maybe other people are trying. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to that curiosity of Brian Manning. But first, I'm going to welcome in Michael, and then we'll get Brian going. Welcome in, Michael.
Thanks, Kathryn. Yeah, we'll get me out of the way quickly because this man brings the firepower. I'm always happy to spend time with him, and this will be no exception. For those of you that have had the pleasure of running into Brian before, you know that this guy doesn't understand the word "you can't do it." He'll find a way. He'll figure it out. He's just got grit, just like the old Angela Duckworth classic. And I love that about him because you see it on both sides of the coin, and that's what Building Bigger Lives is about. It's not just your personal life. It's not just your professional life. It's how do we blend these together. And I'll just give you a hint. This is not a man that believes in balance. He believes in flow, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Brian, great to see you today.
Michael, Kathryn, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's amazing to be here. I'll just get this out now. Michael was my personal coach for a very long time with Building Champions. I'm ecstatic to be here. I think actually Kathryn and I maybe we're getting coached from Michael at the same time.
Yeah.
A long time ago. And I just learned so much from you all. And thank you for having me here today. I'm ecstatic to be here.
Yeah, well, it's really good to have you. And as Kathryn said, I think there's a lot we can learn from you. And I don't want to put you on the hot seat like you've got to, give us all of your trade secrets. But one thing I think the audience ought to hear is a little bit about the backstory, the how did we get here? Because they may not know that. And I know your area code would suggest you hail from the great state of Florida, and yet you relaunched your career cold when you came to Colorado. But I want to rewind the tape a little further back, Brian. What got you interested in this crazy lending career in the first place? How did you find this path? And tell us a little bit about the backstory.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's see, I was 22 years old and we had a company we were running. It was the Bahama Out Island Travel Network. And we did scuba diving travel reservations in the Out Islands of the Bahamas. So originally from South Florida, this was Eleuthera, Exuma, Abacos, all these little islands. Back then, to make a reservation, you had to call on a landline to the Out Islands of the Bahamas. Then an average phone call was about $85. So these small islands and these scuba diving companies used our services stateside. We would take their reservations all week long, and then we'd call them once and we would schedule the reservations. Well, one day, this very nice lady from Texas called in. We were starting to represent Paradise Island in the Bahamas, and I gave her our rate, and she said in the most southern accent, which I can't even imitate, that she just looked on the internet and found a cheaper rate. I didn't even know what the internet was. It was so brand new, but Atlantis Paradise Island was one of the first websites to handle hotel bookings online. And I remember the next day figuring it out and then realizing we're out of business. It might not be that fast, but there's this thing called the internet coming, and I know it shows my age, but it is what it is, and we're out of business. So I need to figure out something fast. And at the time, my girlfriend was a receptionist at a Remax and Motion office in South Florida, and the two top producers there, their names were Evan and Jerry. They were sick of giving their mortgage business to the lender they were using, so they just decided to open up their own mortgage company. And she told me about it, so I just called them and I said, hey, I think I'm going to be leaving what I'm doing right now. I hear you're opening a mortgage business. I don't really even know that the letter T is in the word mortgage, but will you hire me? I don't even know why they said yes. I was probably the only person that called them. So they said yes. I got my license. And immediately I just had all their business. So it was 5 to 6 purchase transactions a month, every single month. And this is in the 90s. And the best thing there was I was the originator, the processor, the clear conditions. That was it. It was me. There was no processor. That's probably the best learning I ever got. So I work with them, and then the lender whose business they basically left, his name was Bob Stott. Bob was so mad that a punk like me came in and took all of his business in one phone call, that he bought the company and absorbed me in it, and he ended up being my first mentor and taught me just so much. And the funny thing, I was talking to someone in my office about this the other day. Bob was an animal. I mean, Bob would close loans left and right. He knew guidelines better than anyone I ever met. Worked like an animal. And when I was younger, I said, I will never work like this guy. This guy, he just never stops working. I will never be like this guy. And I was joking around the other day telling someone, they're like, I probably work more than Bob Stott ever did now. But at that age, it wasn't something I thought, you're in your 20s. You don't think about the hours that you're going to work in your 20s, or that you might just fall in love with an industry and just love it so much that it's no longer work for you. I don't, that's kind of how I feel now. Like, I don't feel like I'm working anymore. I just love this so much. Now we're just building a business, and we're just trying to figure out how to solve problems every day. So it's not work anymore. But if I had to classify it in work hours, now I just work more than Bob ever did. And that really was my start. That started in 1998 when I really got into this, and then I just loved it. So that was, lived in South Florida, went through 08, 09 financial crash. Wasn't fun. South Florida was one of the hardest hit places at the time, just to pass time, because I couldn't even close loans then. I opened up a music production company, and we did tour management for bands throughout the state of Florida. I just had this idea of we weren't getting music in South Florida, so let me open up a tour production company, and I'm going to route artists through the state of Florida to get them down here so I can get live music. Did that for several years, and then realized those hours are worse than mortgage lending. And I still was mortgage lending through all that, but then the market rebounded, and then just kind of finished segueing back into this. And then let's see, so 2011, my wife, her name's Amber, she's an accountant, and she wanted to go back to school to get her PhD. Because she was a senior manager at one of the top 4 accounting firms and hated it because it was like selling your soul to the devil to be on the partner track. So she applied to this grant through the AICPA organization, was a recipient of the grant to pay for her PhD program. In October 2010, we were going around looking at some schools. One of them was in Boulder. I thought, you know what, she can do her program here. It's a good place for her. It's a good place for me. And then in July of 11, we just up and moved from Florida and moved to Colorado. We didn't know a single person. It was just a big gamble at the time. So it's been 14 years now of basically restarting the business from not knowing a single person. And the Florida business was there to support us a little bit because I had been there so long and had such a great client database. But yeah, it really was moving to a brand new market, not knowing a single person, and having to figure out, if I don't know anyone, how do I start a brand new business? And there's pros and cons in there. The pro is that it makes you think a lot, and you have to really not even reinvent yourself. You just have to think. You got really comfortable before. What was I doing over and over and over? And now I'm in a brand new place. And what am I going to do differently? How am I going to grow this? How am I going to succeed? Because we're all commission only. So the only option is to close loans. There's no salary in there. And my wife was a PhD student on a stipend, making 30 grand a year. That's not paying the bills in Boulder, Colorado. That's for sure. Almost anywhere in Colorado. So that was it. So we've been here 14 years now, and it was a great move for us. It was definitely a good transition for us.
So Brian, it's always fun to hear your story, and I've heard it before, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, crazy, because we all imagine reinventing ourselves again, right? So that probably gives you a really, really different perspective. So what did you do during that time to try to figure out, okay, hey, like kind of like a keep, start, stop, right? That Michael talks about all the time. So how did you evaluate it and say, hey, here's the things that I really want to do with this opportunity that I have, and here's the things I want to shed old Brian, and here is how I need to build really quick. And how did that kind of go from where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I never felt like I had good realtor relationships in South Florida. I just didn't fit with the people there, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's like, I'm more of an outdoorsy person. What I do for hobbies, fun, and travel definitely fits the Colorado vibe more than South Florida. So I met realtors, but I never really had like good, deep relationships with realtors. And when I moved to Colorado, I instantly said, I think this is a place where I can make a lot of friends. And, Tim Brahim in Lone Toolbox a long time ago said that the person with the most friends wins. And when I moved to Colorado, I said, I think I can make a lot of friends here. So I shifted my mindset where South Florida was and probably still is a very transactional market. And I just looked at Colorado and I said, I need to figure out how to make deeper relationships and how to become friends with more people here. So I just really changed my mindset and the way that I don't want to say pursuing people, but really trying to find people to become friends with, because I realized here that friendships went farther and they were more productive with deeper relationships. So I just changed kind of everything of how we went about it from day one of who do I want to meet? Can I be friends with them? Can my wife and I go out for dinner with them? If my spouse meets their spouse, can we be better friends? Just everything shifted in how we really built our business here. Now, I'm a solid introvert. My wife is a CPA. She's like the queen of introverts. So now we're trying to figure out how do you get I always say I'm a introverted extrovert. So what I mean by that is if you put me in a room of 50 people, like at a party, I will find one person I know and I will not work that room. I will not leave that room with 20 friends. I will find one person I know and that's it. On my out of office time, I'm a solid introvert. Like I'm not a very social person, but I have to force myself to be an extrovert because everything we do is relationship driven. So I also had to figure out how do you take a introverted family and kind of push their limits to tend, lean towards the extroverted side. So you're kind of pushing a lot of boundaries there for a lot of people, and you're asking your spouse to do something that is not inherently comfortable, which the funny thing is she's made some incredible friends out of this as well, which is really good. So yeah, for us, the start was looking at the difference in the markets and trying to identify the differences, which I identify really quick one was transactional, one was relationship. And so now I identify, okay, one's relationship, what am I going to do? How am I going to now work my way into this? And honestly, what I did was I printed out the top 100 realtors. And I started at number one. That's another thing. When you go into a new market, you don't know anyone. So there's nothing to be scared of. You don't know their volume. You don't know who they work with. Like you have nothing. So I just started number one, and I will never forget her name. It was Karen Bernardi. They're still number one. And I just called her and I said, I'm brand new to Boulder. I've been a mortgage lender. I don't know anything about this market. Can I just buy you lunch? I just want to pick your brain. I just need to learn about this market. What I was trying to do was just go meet people and see if I could be friends with them. So she says to me, what are you doing in 15 minutes? Number one. That's a great way of how it started. Then number three, his name was Chris. He says to me, great, let's have lunch tomorrow. I mean, and I just kept going down the list and just calling and meeting and calling and meeting. And I just went through 100 and just met as many as I could. So, a lot of times it's not rocket science how you build your business. I think it's just coming up with a plan that you can stick to, and then knowing it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable probably, and then just doing it,
Kathryn, I hear so many themes here, and I know you're a note taker. Brian, I hope our audience picked up on this. So let's just highlight a couple of these. You don't have to be an extrovert in order to grow your business through relationships. You found a way to look at it pragmatically and say, I'm going to have to stretch out of my comfort zone. Then you take a list like this. You're making calls. Many of us, I don't know why we get this thought in our head of, well, I can't call people I don't know. That's weird. Who's going to take that call? But you've just proven there that, in fact, if you're just a straight, authentic person, guess what? Certain people will say, I like it. Let's get together. And you didn't really let any of that stuff hinder you. You still push yourself to grow. Was that always in you? Like if we had met you as a young guy, like the kid on the little league field or the kid in high school, were you always just willing to say, I'll find a way? Or did that mature in you as you were influenced by Bob or Tim Brahim or other people along the way?
No, I feel like I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I would say open my own business, but I started my own like candy sale company in middle school because I wanted to buy something and my parents wouldn't buy it for me. And I was like, screw this. If you're not going to buy it for me, then I'm going to figure out a way to buy it on my own. So I convinced my parents to go to Costco and buy a box of blow pops. And I did the math and I figured out if I just sold them for a quarter a piece, one box would buy me the t-shirt that I wanted. And then that was like that hit. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it just kind of went from there. So I think it's always been you got to be a resourceful person. You just got to keep digging and just keep trying to figure it out. And you're going to fail a lot. I mean, I failed. I've had a bankruptcy, a foreclosure. Like when the financial collapse in Florida hit in '08, I mean, it was rough for a lot of people. And, I was embarrassed about it at first. Now I just realized that, I just kept trying. And, you just fail and you got to pick yourself up and do it again. So I think it's just been trying for a long time.
So Brian, you had brought up Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone needs a Bob, right?
Everyone needs a Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. So since Bob, who are some other people that you've, followed, mentored, watched, kind of that have helped propel you? And I know sometimes those get recycled out and that's okay, but I'm curious on other influences in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Michael here for sure. And I mean, it was just so impactful in my life. I remember getting into TMC for the first time when Michael called me. It was just it just really changed my life. And then I met Daniel Harkavy, who I never met before. And I'm not even personal friends with him, but I only saw him speak a few times. But there was just something magnetic about this guy that just drew me to learn about him. And then through there, I met Todd Brookspan, who you all know. And I've just watched and learned from Todd over the years. He's just been incredibly impactful. Rene Rodriguez, he runs this company Amplify. If y'all know Rene, he's just helped us so much with branding and public speaking. And if you want to learn how to public speak, go to his Amplify event. It will be the worst thing you've ever done in your life. It's so uncomfortable, but you will be a better speaker when you leave there. And then Matt Weaver, he's in our company. I've known Matt for quite a while, and I've just learned so much from him. And he's been a great mentor. And he has a business partner. His name is Avi, who's just brilliant at how he runs a business. I've learned so much from them. I just think, yeah, there's so many people. The list just kind of goes on and on and on, where people really touch and impact your life. I think if you just take a moment and let them in and listen, you got to stop talking and just listen.
That dog will hunt, Brian. It's a truth. And I think so many times people are afraid to listen. They think we're all sales professionals. We've all made our living trying to help people, as you said, in a fully commissioned job. But one of the hardest things to do is, as I used to write on my whiteboard, the word wait. And wait stood for, why am I talking? And it was a good reminder to ask a better question and then give that person the space. You can learn a lot from someone if you'll just let them do the talking. And I can see that skill is alive in you. All right. So tell us a little bit about some of the other skills, because, you launched this podcast this year, which is really exciting. Where did the inspiration for that come from? And what, the topic certainly is in the title, but you seem to have found some ways to stretch that, and it has a little bit more latitude than just one topic. Tell me a little bit about the Balance in Motion podcast.
Yeah, I just think, social media to me just now, it just kind of seems so fake. It's everyone just saying, look at me, look at how great I am. And, there's nothing, I don't want to say nothing, very little rawness, very little of people actually saying like, wow, I'm struggling. This is hard. And I wanted to put this podcast together to really showcase that high producing people, it doesn't matter where you're high producing. Athletic, with being an athlete, business, it makes no difference. A kid in high school, anyone that's high producing, it makes no difference. It's just struggling, and it's hard, and you're getting knocked down, and you're embarrassed in your failures, and there's not a lot of balance in life. High producing people are just like constantly trying to swing the bat and just keep going. And I just wanted to put a podcast together that just was kind of raw and real, and where people could talk about, I don't have balance in my life. Like my wife and I, we do struggle with keeping our relationship together. We do struggle with like work hours and, personal time and going out to dinner. And my kids suffered because I couldn't go to a whatever swim meet. And, it's just like everything seems so fake in social media. I just really want to have something to where a platform we could honestly talk about people and what they do and the successes that they're trying to achieve. But most importantly, the challenges that they're seeing, and so that other people could relate with them and say, okay, I'm not the only one struggling right now. I'm not the only one like struggling with my marriage because I'm focused on one thing and they're focused on the other, whatever the answer would be. So it just kind of stemmed from there. And then the more we've done and the podcast, I think it's kind of grown to be a good platform just to learn about people and share, kind of real experiences that people are having right now in general with whatever it is, wherever you are in life, because I just think balance is so hard to achieve. I just think it's just not possible.
Well, now I'm curious about, some of these guests, because you've had some really interesting people on already,
Mhm.
including our friend Todd Bookspan. What have you learned about other people's stories that have maybe encouraged you beyond just your own experience with balance or imbalance? What have they shared with you that surprised you or helped maybe expand your definition of this balance is BS?
The favorite thing I've learned so far is the backstory for every person. You
Mm.
see these people now and you're like, oh, look at who they are, their production or the public speaking they've done, whatever it is. And you see where they are now and you don't know, or you've never paid attention to the backstory. And the favorite thing I've figured out so far or learned is like, where did they come from and how did they get here? And really, really, really all the way back from the beginning. That's kind of been the best part. I mean, I know that all these people we talk to don't have any balance in their life. Of course they don't. That's why we're talking with them. But the backstory of how they got there, from a young age is probably the most exciting for me to, and a lot of people don't talk about that often or just not aware of it. So to get that out and let people share their story. I think part of what I learned from this is allowing people a platform to share their story is super exciting from the beginning, not just a story right now. Because the story right now is, for a lot of us, is very, I don't want to say public, but we see it. But what was the story 20 and 30 years ago? Like Todd was talking about his wife being in law school and they had kids and, he's running a bike shop and like no balance in their life, but super happy. And it's the backstory and the true story of people. I find it really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kathryn, that
it's
resonates.
yeah, it does. We've gotten to hear a lot of great stories over our podcast as well, and that's definitely one of the things I love about getting to meet so many people, and not just meet them, but dig in a little bit more, spend some time with them. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. So now looking forward a little bit, you're really good at spotting opportunities, like I brought up at the beginning, and spotting exciting projects to work on and things like that. What opportunities are you leaning into right now?
I mean, the first is the simplest opportunity you can ever imagine right now is that every mediocre loan officer out there is chasing refinance business, and every single realtor is an open opportunity right now. So the biggest opportunity we're seeing right now is that we are doubling down on our relationships, our luncheons, our realtor building tactics that we're going after. When everyone else is chasing refinances, I actually don't care about any refinance business. Everything we're doing is purchase focused. And it's funny, I talked to this top agent in Denver the other day. She's like top 3. And I said, let me ask you a question. Have you stopped getting phone calls from loan officers trying to take you out for coffee over the last 2 weeks? And she says, I haven't gotten a single phone call. And it just solidified everything for me right there. So, it's like when people are chasing the trend, we're just staying steady on what we do and we're just doubling down on really what we've already built. So I couldn't tell you it's like anything new and magical. We're just doubling down on what we already have going on because I just think there's such incredible opportunity there right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a really great answer, Brian, because I think too many people suffer from, bright, shiny object syndrome. They get distracted by trying to catch trends, trying to catch moments. And I think what I hear you saying loud and clear is let those trends exist. That'll create my opportunity to get into the lane that I really want to be in. You're taking advantage of somebody else getting a little bit distracted, which is, I hope the audience is listening to that, because we're all capable of getting distracted, and good for you for bringing that back home. All right.
Yeah.
So flash forward for me. You're gonna sit here. We're recording this around the fall of 2025. Let's say we get to the fall of 2028, and I get to come to Boulder, and I stay at the St. Julian, and we go out to dinner. Well, actually, why are we going out to dinner? We're letting Amber cook dinner. She is an amazing cook, so I'm gonna somehow bribe her. I'll buy the groceries and let her cook. But we look back to this fall. What's happened over that 3-year period of time? Where will we find you? What will life look like? Tell me a little bit about the vision you have over the next few years.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's see, next 3 years. My goal at that time would be to have, I had this thing a long time ago where title companies had title reps. And I just always thought, why do mortgage companies not have mortgage reps? Why does a title company have a title rep? So ideally, we'll have 2 or 3, we'll call them business development people, as we're doing these luncheons, that are then out meeting the agents and developing the relationships after. Because, right now we're averaging 1 luncheon a week, and I'm averaging 40 to 50 agents a week in our luncheons. So it is just, I can't keep up with it. It's impossible. So if we just keep on that trend, expanding our business through relationships that are developed with business development people. And then, and from there, one thing I learned from Matt and our company is it's just a very systematic process. And, it's the same replicatable process over and over and over. Everything, scripting on how you answer the phone, the whole thing is just a very simple process. So, our team at that time, I've slowly been looking for, we'll call him a COO of our team. I need to step away from the operations side and let someone step in and run the operations of the business. So while I'm out there working on the growth of the business and really have more of the CEO mindset while there's a COO in the business running it. So I would say, I bet in the next 3 years, I'll have a COO type person that's in here as a semi-partnership, actually running the business at that point in time while I'm out developing more and more relationships. Because you got to figure out the lane you want to swim in. And now we've seen our luncheons are successful, or we've gotten good at building realtor relationships. So the more time I can spend on that, the more time really the business will just continue to thrive from there. So, I would say, I bet that's kind of where I think we'll see. I don't think the business is going to change that much in the next 3 years. AI is coming out. I just don't, I keep trying to use AI for stuff in the mortgage industry. Yeah, it's great for writing an email, but it is not good at calculating income. There's just a lot of gaps in it. That might change over time, but I don't anticipate very drastic changes there in the next 3 years. So I think as far as like the origination process is concerned, it's going to stay relatively similar over the next 3 years, but my business will change very dynamically over the next 3 years. The goal is just to keep running it like a true business, you got to change the mindset of not being a single originator. At least you don't have to. I'm changing the mindset of not being the originator and running the actual business. So we're just taking the steps there to run a true business, not just Brian Manning loans.
So that's exactly what I was going to say, is that a lot of people do look at it as, oh, I work for a company. Mm-hmm. But instead looking at it as, hey, this is my business. I'm going to have a COO. Is there a COO of our company? Absolutely. But it's different than having a COO in your office. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think even if you're a one-person business in this industry, whether it be a real estate agent, a loan originator, you have to look at it like a business. What can we tear down? What can we systemize? So I'm glad that you brought all that up for our listeners, because that is so important to look at it that way. And I think people that don't succeed, like a lot of the people who look at it holistically and say, I need to run this just like my own little business. So thanks for bringing that up, Brian. That was important.
Yeah. I mean, first you guys got to realize, like, regardless of my ego, people will talk to other people than me. I don't have to be the one that originates the loans. I can orchestrate the process and set the level of standards in which we want to operate at. But it's funny, someone will actually do a pre-approval with someone other than me over the phone. Imagine that. So I think part of it is realizing that you can build a team, and you might need to step in to take care of some VIP people or put out some fires, whatever. But part of it is realizing that you can grow your team by not doing everything, and you just have to train people really well. You got to be willing to train people in your process and at your standards. And if you're willing to commit to that, you can grow your business for sure.
Yeah, I hope our audience hears that loud and clear, Brian. There's an ownership mindset to your attitude. And there's a sense that if there's going to be an expansion of this vision, including people that'll join you in roles that they'll play, you see what's possible. You're not thinking small. You're thinking, how do we actually scale this thing? And that might mean that your lane gets narrower and deeper, but your ego doesn't need to cover all the lanes, because that's actually going to limit your growth. You see the potential of the multiplication factor. And I hope the audience hears that loud and clear. That's a great segue with that, Kathryn. Brian, let's bring this one into the home stretch. Look, you're clearly doing creative things. You've touched on a few of them here. I think these classes or lunch and learns really is what they are that you're doing are really well done. You know, your team seems to be branding you really well. They seem to be promoting them really well, and you seem to celebrate them really well, which is also fun. A lot of people do a lot of push up to the event. You guys do a really good job of tying it back down and recapping it, making sure that people know, hey, this wasn't just an event. This is a relationship, and it keeps going. If you wanted to share with our audience, what's the one thing that you would say, hey, you gotta, if you know anything about me, you might've heard my podcast. You might've done Alone with me at some point. You might've seen me out on the trail at dark 30 on a Saturday morning. But what's the one thing they really need to know about Brian Manning that they may not know, because we all three are introverts, and this is your chance to let them in behind the curtain?
That's a great question. The one thing, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Everything's such a open book. I don't really have anything I'm hiding. Not even hiding.
Well, maybe they would miss it because it's hiding in plain sight.
I mean, the one thing that, all right, here's the answer for you. I almost never take time off work. The one thing that most people, and the idea is to keep this behind the scenes, is that I actually get a break and can take time off of work and go on vacation and not live with my laptop, and that the team operates so well that no one knows I'm gone. And it's a little elusive to say, but the whole goal is, how can this whole thing run without me being in it? Because, you know, the time you got to go on vacation, I'm lucky to have a wife that's just let me do anything I want, and has supported the whole thing, but that's only gonna last so long. So, you know, it's like peeling back a little bit behind the curtains, but what I'm trying to build is a business that can run on its own, that I don't have to be here, that if I want to go on vacation for 6 months, and check out, that everything is still running. And that's kind of the goal I'm trying to get to, is how can we still close loans and I'm not here? Now, the chance of me checking out for 6 months is slim, but that's kind of what we're going for, is how do we keep this whole thing running? And I really you just go on vacation and check out, have a good time.
I love that answer. Kathryn, any closing thoughts from you today?
No, it's fun to reconnect and see you and hear about your business. And you and I have always had great conversations. So it's fun to bring those public and get to talk a little bit more. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, Brian. You're obviously a person that I love spending time with. You're very inspirational. I'm glad the audience now gets to hear a glimpse of that. I hope the audience, you'll go follow Brian on his Balance in Motion podcast. You'll find a lot of really interesting topics there as well. And we're really glad we could have you with us today. That's a wrap on Building Bigger Lives. And we hope every Wednesday you'll tune in. We drop a new episode every Wednesday. We hope you'll not only listen to it, you'll share it with someone in your world that might want to hear from either our guest or our topic. And you'll find us on all the podcast platforms. We hope you'll have a great day, and we'll see you next Wednesday.